Thank you very much, Ibrahim. As with always dealing with China, the numbers are simply mind-boggling, and it was fascinating to see how open the Chinese mobile market is. If we can get everybody sitting down again, we've got one more excellent panel coming up. You guys will come take a seat and think of some good questions for our panelists. That would be awesome. So this next one's going to turn to that democratization of development, to opening access again, to allowing more people to turn their good ideas into excellent products, right? So we've got an excellent panel this time. I'm going to introduce them real quick and they can come up and grab a seat. So we're starting with Sahil, the CEO and co-founder of Adstage, which is an all-in-one ad campaign platform, allows you to put your ad campaigns out simultaneously on Google, Bing, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Nancy Hua, the CEO and founder of Apptimize, which is a testing and analytics platform for apps. Bryant, Chou, co-founder of Webflow, which allows you to make beautiful and responsive websites without having to code. And Larsen, the CEO and co-founder of Ripple Labs, which is a trust-based and math-based payment system and associated currency. All right, you guys can come on up. We've got an excellent panelist in Ronquay Lee. Thank you.
Hello? Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'd appreciate if you can grab some seats in front of the seats, and we will, because the time is limited, we can listen, focus on our awesome panelists. Hi, guys. There? Hello? I think there's no visitors will come, so would you like to grab some seats in here in front of the seat, and then we can finish this awesome panel. Because I think, we tried very hard to invite these awesome speakers. They all backed by strong, they all have strong backgrounds and awesome product. Yeah. So I would appreciate if you could focus on our talk and be quiet. And if you have questions, we will have some time for you, okay? So first of all, I think maybe you have some knowledge of all of them. So let's first start with, would you like to give us some basic ideas of what you are doing? So Chris.
Sure, happy to. I'm Chris Larsen, CEO of Ripple Labs. Ripple Labs is a software company that built and supports the Ripple protocol. The Ripple protocol is an open source, sort of think of it as sort of an internet for value exchange. So kind of our view of the world is we have an internet for information is wired together the entire world, as we've been hearing about. But when it comes to the exchange of value, payments, transactions, that's all still pre-internet until now. So until largely, you've probably heard about the technology behind Bitcoin. We're taking that same kind of technological concepts and we're using it to build a global payment system, value exchange system that's currency agnostic, so it can operate in Chinese yuan, dollar, euro, yen, airline miles, merchant reward points, anything that humans kind of consider value and allow that to be exchanged like information. So why is that important? Again, the world didn't know how to do this until a couple of years ago. So this means we think the same thing's going to happen to payments, value exchange, that's happened over the last 2 decades in information exchange. So we think it's a huge, huge opportunity now, huge game changer for developers now to log on to these new protocols like the Ripple protocol and build out essentially an entirely new financial system globally. So our job is just to support developers, give them the tools, REST APIs, we have a new developer portal, we have an incubator, we give office space to really interesting development startups and then try to support them with our currency and our resources. So we're really excited about it. It's a real game changer when it comes to value exchange.
Hey guys, my name is Sahil. I'm the CEO of Adstage, which is actually a little bit of a different company. So we're an ad technology company where you can actually build, deploy, and manage ad campaigns across Google, Facebook, Bing, and LinkedIn from a single interface. But what we realize is that a lot of online advertisers don't just use one tool to get the job done, right? They do things like landing page A/B testing, image sourcing, keyword discovery, and there's a lot of various point solutions out in the ad world that are kind of just sitting there. You have to use 20 tools to get the job done. So we recently announced our app development API, we call it our platform API, where people who have these marketing apps like Apptimize or Unbounce can actually integrate their apps directly into the Adstage platform. Or developers who are looking to build new marketing apps like a keyword tool, they can actually tie directly into our API. We've built a lot of this infrastructure to tie into the ad networks, and it can directly kind of build those apps into our platform, just like a Heroku API, right? So Heroku has their first-party integrations and third-party integrations. And so we're actually the first developer on our API, of course, as you usually should be. And just as a brief note, my last company was called Trigger.io, which was a cross-platform app development framework for mobile apps, which would have been more fitting if I was still there. But yes, that's mine.
I used to do algorithmic trading, so I don't know, that's slightly similar to the Bitcoin stuff. I really like, automated trading for like electronic exchanges and things like that. But after I did algorithmic trading, my co-founder and I, so our company does A/B testing for apps. It kind of started when we were working on a bunch of apps just for fun. And we were like, well, we need to A/B test like this call to action because we were trying to build like the next Craigslist killer. And we were like, how do you get people to like bid on this thing? Like people, are they gonna respond to like a button here or like, just simple questions like I want to test the answers to that. And in algorithmic trading, that's really common. Like you would just throw it out there. Like you would make the algorithms try the different values and you would see which performed better and it would be pretty clear like this is gonna make more money. So I wanted to do that. So we started building it ourselves. And then one of our friends, Robotic Vader, they have games that have tens of millions of downloads. It was like, well, I want to A/B test the configuration of stuff in my store. Like, do I have the most expensive stuff first or later? Or do I like have Tapjoy as an option first or later? Or do I have like, the items, should they be things that I allow people to buy just like whenever they enter the store? Should I have these notifications that ping them to, it's pretty obvious questions that you are testable, you want to see the answers to. So they were our first real user that wasn't our game, or our priceless thing that no one ever used. They were our first real user, and we were in tens of millions of downloads of their games, and it was just like, wow, people want to do this. So now we enable anyone to have this technology. If you want to answer a question about what the best way is to do something for your app, the standard best practice of finding out this answer is not to do a focus group. It's to push it out to your real users and see what they do.
Hi, so I'm Bryant. My company's Webflow. And Webflow helps professional designers make responsive websites. So responsive websites are websites that work well on desktop devices, tablets, and mobiles. So Webflow was started because we used to run an agency, and the agency was very small. We had clients from mom and pop shop restaurants all the way to medium-sized businesses. And for those that understand web development's a very broken process right now. So typically what happens is that designers are mocking up their sites in Photoshop. They're essentially making raster mock-ups of their site that they then hand off to their developer. And these developers are taking a look at the screenshots and mock-ups and be like, okay, now I have to go into HTML and CSS, JavaScript to actually code this up. So this process has been around since the advent of the internet. And there still hasn't been a tool that can make pixel-perfect mock-up or websites without any coding. So that's essentially what Webflow is. It's the first tool that professional designers can use to make anything that developers can code up in a completely visual and graphic interface. We really recognize that responsive is huge. So for this 680 million websites that are out on the internet, only 83% of them are not responsive. So that means 8 out of 10 websites are not built and optimized for the mobile device. So as more and more people come online, these people are coming online with phones. And for the next decade, we see a tremendous opportunity to really provide the one tool that professional designers can use to create digital content.
Okay, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm a writer at PingWest, and maybe you focus on my hoodie because I think it's very interesting because this afternoon when I was working on the Capsule Avenue in Mountain View, everybody was looking at me, and I was astonished to find that everybody was looking at me, and I about what happened to me, and then I realized there's some words on my hoodie. So life is short, use Python. I think I am the best person for this panel because we are going to talk about enjoying coding and testing. Even you don't have any background of coding, even you don't know how to code, because I don't know how to code. So I have a question for our audience. Please raise your hand to answer my question. How many of you are engineers? How many of you can write code? Please raise your hand. Okay. Oh, Lisa, you can write code. She's a reporter. Okay. How many of you are designers? Or non-designers? Right? Maybe a little upset.
You don't want to see my designs.
Okay. So how many of you are BD or marketing people? Please raise up your hand. Oh, cool. And Sahil, I think they are your audience. Okay. So how many of you have ever heard about Bitcoin? Please raise up your hand. Okay. So thanks to Bitcoin and I think Ripple Labs, their virtual currency protocol has already raised a lot of curiosities from the audience. So first of all, I think I want to ask some interesting question because maybe you don't know all our panelists here, they have a strong background. Let's first go to Bryant. Yeah. They are founded by YC and the Team Draper and the Founders Club. So I want to ask about some interesting stories when you are raising your money. Yeah.
I have very, very many interesting stories. Okay, I'll start with my second ever pitch, and this pitch happened to be to an investor that a lot of you know. He's probably one of the most well-known investors in Silicon Valley. And Tim Draper. I always had this vision in my mind that Tim had this very strong stage presence and like he was this very formidable man and just like done all these amazing things. And if you look him up on Google, like right now on your phone, if like the top 2 or 3 images of Tim is Tim riding a rhino. Like he's riding a rhino in his DFJ office. So I was like, all right, this guy's insane. Like, how can I like match him in my pitch? So essentially what I did was I drank 5 cups of coffee before the pitch. By the time I got to the office, I was just so wired that I think I looked sick. But essentially my plan was to, even though like I knew he was a very tall man, my plan was to like make myself like very present in the room. So I just started waving my hands and started shouting like billion and like billion and saying like these really large words that I didn't even knew I had in my vocabulary. And essentially, Tim was very quiet. And I was like, this is very odd because every time I've seen Tim, and for people that have interacted with him, he doesn't stop talking. And it's very hard to get him to listen. So I was like, oh, this is really bad. Like, I don't think he understood what I was saying. But I think at the very end of the meeting, and I was describing my last company. At the very end of the meetings, he said something like, oh, so essentially I can use this for Pepsi. And I was like, what? What are you? I never mentioned Pepsi. Like, how did this come out? But he managed to take a very loose thought and connected it to the foundational premise of my business that I had never thought about. And I was like, this is brilliant. And Tim and I have had very many amazing conversations after that, and he ended up investing in my company. But it was also a very crazy experience, and learned a lot from it.
And how about Nancy? Because I know you are backed by Y Combinator and Anderson Hollows and Google Ventures.
Yeah, I don't think I have as crazy of a story. Raised that around pretty fast after demo day. I think like there was just like a few day period where I had like meetings back to back, and I just closed like every meeting that I was in. So we just like really algorithmed it, and it was I guess it kind of worked because the people that wanted the meetings earlier were the ones that were more interested, whereas the other ones were like, oh, we'll meet in a week or something, and by then it would be too late. I don't know. I think my favorite investors are the ones who used to be founders because they like are the easiest in terms of getting the money in the bank. Because I remember our first money that we got in was like one of the VC firms, and it was like we had to go through the legal team and do all this stuff, and the whole time we're like freaking out that it's gonna not happen at the last moment. But the founders like never give you that problem. They all just like ship you the money, and it's like super easy, and they don't ask for like due diligence or anything. Like they're just believing that someone else is doing it, which is accurate, so that it's just so much more chill. And then afterwards, they don't bother you. Like we had some of the people wanted information rights. We never ended up giving them to anybody, but they like wanted to know that we would send them reports and stuff like that. And yeah, like we just didn't want to have to agree to anything like that. And founder investors never ask for crazy terms or anything. They're just really chill, and they just sign the papers and give you whatever you want. I actually invested. Yeah, I invested in one of the companies in our batch. Actually, I invested in Adstage.
Oh, awesome.
And it's really funny because I know those guys, but then they also send me the investor emails, and like the gap between like I don't know, the investor email is like so professional looking, and it's like I don't. Yeah, and then when I like Facebook message them, you get like the real story. Okay.
Okay, let's go to Sahil. Because his former startup named Trigger.io, right? Is backed by Y Combinator, and his Adstage is backed by 500 startups. And one of their investors is amazing because he's David Sachs, right? David Sachs?
Yes. Okay, so I guess just like everyone else has said, there's a lot of stories that can be told about fundraising. Ours was actually a pretty quick close as well. It was, I left my last company, which was Trigger, and we incorporated the company 10 days after I left, and then 20 days after that, we had our round closed. And so it all happened very quickly. We didn't even have a website. We didn't even know the domain. So it was very odd. There was a lot. It was kind of, it was a fun time because my co-founder left school. He was doing his master's at CMU. He was working out of my kitchen. My water heater broke. My entire apartment flooded. It was, while I was gone doing meetings. But I think the coolest story was maybe, there's a few, but how I actually chose my lead investor was interesting. We were talking to a few funds, and we wanted someone to give us like a $500K check, right, to lead the round. And one of our investors, we were talking for a while, and finally they came out and said that, hey, they want to do the round. The next day I get an email from the same investor, and they said, hey, we're really excited to do the round, but please don't put us on angel list yet because, we actually had one of my other partners had a meeting with somebody, and it kind of spooked him on doing the deal with it. And so at this point I was kind of upset, right, because he had me, talking to him for quite a while, and I thought, hey guys, you can't verbally commit, and all of a sudden you get spooked with some random conversation. You already had me talk to 20 people. And so I decided to be a little bit ballsy this day. And when you first start fundraising, you're not as ballsy as you hope you'd be necessarily. And so this sounds like, fuck it, I really want to try this. And so I emailed him back, and I was like, you know what, X, I'm not going to say his name right now, but I said, look, like I'm actually just really disappointed. I think that you pitched me on wanting, when you invest in companies, you want to say that you're a founder with us, that you've actually started this company with us, and you want to be kind of on our management team. And I said, frankly, if you have to keep asking 20 people to make a decision, then I would never hire you on my management team. Right? Because I need people who manage to actually make a decision. I need decision makers on my team. And so I said, I really think that you guys just need to grow up and make your own decision. I was like, holy shit, did I really say that? It's kind of weird. It's kind of an odd thing to say, right? I was young, I was 22 years old at the time, telling this guy to grow up. And lo and behold, I didn't know, but on his Twitter, I've been kind of stalking his Twitter to see what's going on. It was actually his 40th birthday that day. So not only did I hit the man when he was down, but I really hit when he was down. And so, anyways, the reason why I actually chose them to be our lead investor was because of the way that he responded to the email. And he responded with a lot of class, right? He could have had a huge ego. He could have, said, well, screw this guy. Like, what is he talking about? But he responded. And he was like, you know what? You're actually right. I think that this is the right call here. And he was kind of laughing at the fact that this younger guy was telling him to grow up. But he was like, you're right. And I think that even as the co-founder of the fund actually called me as well and said, hey, I didn't talk to X, but I wanted to call you and let you know that you're right. We're really sorry how you handled this, and we're really excited to work with you. And there was a term sheet on our table and it was signed by the end of the day. And so that was a really good experience, and I think it helped me start the business on a great footing, and it showed that, at least to this investor, that they're working with someone who's not going to be a pushover, and there's someone that really wants to run this business and work with people who are excited about it, and they should be excited as well if they're involved. So to this day, I've made them work incredibly hard, and they deserve it, so it's good.
Okay, how about Chris? You are backed by Andreessen Horowitz and Google Ventures, right?
That's right, at Ripple Labs. But probably the story I'd share, I shall go way back in time to 98. That was my first company, eLoan. By the way, we have Tim Draper in our last company, he's phenomenal. But a great investor, the head of SoftBank, Masayoshi Son, who's obviously an amazing guy now, but back during the first dot-com wave, he became a big investor in a lot of companies around here. This is another crazy hot time back in '98, like it is today. And I remember we raised like 10 million from him. He got back to Japan. We were sort of running low. We had to call him very nervously. We were pretty green back then. And so we called him up. We thought it would be this big, painful discussion. And he said, just think of me as your ATM cash machine, whatever you need. And he just wires us up the money right away. He's just an incredibly supportive guy. But I think the takeaway there, though, is that fundraising is either incredibly easy or incredibly hard. And right now we're in an incredibly great period. Don't let this opportunity go by. This won't last. Maybe a couple more years, hopefully more. When it gets hard, it gets really hard. You go from feast to famine very quickly. So if you're a developer out there, you got an idea, there's tons of money, there's tons of incubators. We've got one. Tim Draper's son, Adam Draper, now has he has an incubator boost backing other map-based currencies. So a ton of opportunity out there just to take advantage of it.
Yeah, the conference I joined this afternoon at 500 Startups, Adam Draper was there, and he was talking about how he got, I think it's Bryant and Chou, who is the founder of Coinbase. He talked about he helped him to push the Coinbase successful. Yeah. So the topic is about enjoying coding and testing. So I'm very curious about, do you guys think it is a good time, the right time for developers to develop for developers? That's hard to understand.
This is a phenomenal time for developers. I mean, there's so much out there. And what you're seeing now, again, this whole wave we've seen in the last 2 decades, this has only been the information web. There are a bunch more waves coming. Obviously, finance hasn't even been touched yet by the internet. All of our payment systems, our transactions, are all pre-internet, 40-year-old system. It's only now that the world knows how to move value like information. That's one wave. The education online wave is coming. The healthcare wave is coming. And these are massive industries. There's so much money that's going to be kind of rearranged globally. So there's never been a better time. And there's so many companies now that they just exist to support developers. That's kind of why we exist. We're not a consumer company. We only exist to support developers and others that want to use our protocol.
So for Ripple, I have some questions about, because it's a new ecosystem. So if you want to involve more developers in this ecosystem, first of all, I think you need to educate them, right, to attract them to your ecosystem network. So what about your client, or would you like to introduce the development system of Ripple to us?
Sure, we just recently launched our developer portal. A key thing for us is to communicate what is our roadmap, what kinds of APIs that we're working on, so developers can anticipate what to be working forward with. We just launched our REST API, just makes it super easy for developers to develop in whatever language that they're interested in. We are at the protocol level, so people can build entire platforms on top of the protocol. And without, it's a free protocol, right? We monetize through a native currency that we created, which is another thing that we kind of offer to developers. So developers can distribute the currency that we've created through creative applications that they've built. We've also started this incubator programs through Menlo Ventures. We support it, we fund it, we give free office space, we help with money and support. We don't take an equity interest at all because we want to stay neutral. So again, we're just existing to support the ecosystem, which is obviously good for everybody. So that's a major commitment that we have. The other thing we'll be doing is putting bounties on our developer portal on cool kind of key utility and liquidity projects that we think are particularly valuable. We'll give bounties of XRP, which has value today. All of XRP is the native currency like Bitcoin in the Ripple protocol. All of it's worth about $1.5 billion. So we've got a lot of resources to help jumpstart the developer community. And by the way, the biggest opportunities are in China, by far. We're incredibly bullish about what's going on in China. It's just the beginning for all kinds of reasons that have been covered here today. And these are the first global financial systems, that have really been available to developers. You just couldn't do this until 2 years ago. So it's like 96 for the information web, and now's the time to get on board.
So if you are interested in virtual currency network, if you missed the chance of Bitcoin, please catch up with Ripple Labs later. So for Sahil, I'm very interested. You founded Trigger.io before, and it's a cross-platform mobile development framework targeted on the web developers who want to create the native mobile apps. So what was the challenge for the web developers at that time, and how would Trigger to solve that?
Right, well, so a couple of years ago, this was kind of, mobile has actually been around for a long time, well before iOS and Android. People were developing in Brew and J2ME, and that was kind of what the old mobile frameworks were actually built upon. But after, when the wave came out with, in 07, when iOS and Android hit, people had to kind of learn Objective-C, or they had to learn Android Java, which were fairly different languages. They're very different, right? And so today, you could have spent all of your resources building on one of the platforms, and it would have been very resource intensive to try to build on the other platform. But there were a lot of web developers. People have been doing web development, like Webflow speak about, they've been doing web development for a very long time. And so if we could utilize, without having to make these developers learn a new language or learn a new paradigm for development, if they could still use their web development skills to get a mobile presence or to build a native mobile app, not just necessarily a hybrid app, but being able to tap into the native functionality, that's highly valuable, right? There are a lot of kind of cookie cutter tools back in the day, like Conduit Mobile, for example, where you could, they have templates and you can build these mobile apps, but they're really awful, right? If you're going to build a mobile experience, you need it to be a genuine mobile experience, not a copy of a web experience. And so that was something that we had to educate a lot of developers about, was don't just copy your website, you need to create a truly different experience on mobile, but that's still, I think today, there's still a lot of people missing that mark. And so for us, it was very important to enable all developers, especially the vast majority, which was developers at the time, to be able to build that strong mobile presence. And so that's what we focused on. And today, there's still a lot of companies in that space that are doing well. I went away from that space because I fundamentally, at that time, and still do now, if I were going to build a mobile app today, I would still build native, like straight Objective-C and then Java. I would not build an HTML5 kind of hybrid mobile app for various reasons. But for the developers out there, I think that JavaScript still doesn't render fast enough in the mobile browser. And so that's a big reason for it.
When we talk about mobile, I think Nancy would be the perfect guy to answer your question. So Nancy, I know you started Apptimize for yourself with Jeremy, right? Was that true?
Yes, that's accurate.
So what was the problem at that time? You have to build the framework for yourself instead of using other tools or other servers.
Yeah, there was another company called Clutch.io that was also Y Combinator. Eric, the guy who wrote it, because he's also Y Combinator, and they got acquired by Twitter, and so they open sourced their framework after when that happened. And we were looking at it, and we tried to use it, and it was really hard to use, and there were some problems with it. And then I talked with him, and he was like, I don't know, he was like, yeah, you shouldn't use that. It was like embarrassing code for him at that point, because he after joining Twitter, rewrote everything and made something better. And I think there was just an absence of stuff that was actually useful. We tried, that was not our goal when we started working on apps. We had a lot of weird ideas, honestly, but it was one of our other ideas was we were making this EEG machine. Well, okay, whatever. So we had other ideas, but this thing it had users, and we were oh, this is where it's at. The A/B testing for apps thing is like the business that we're gonna start.
So I know, fixing bugs, yeah. On mobile is it's harder than the web, right?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
especially you have to wait for the users to upgrade, and you have to wait for the response from the app stores, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So how would you solve this problem?
Right. I think, yeah, we had two there's like the bucket of users who are indie developers or startups, and those guys are all trying to solve the problem of they have some feature that they like pushed out to their app. They spent a long time on it. It's like maybe a front-facing camera or something like that. They enabled a front-facing camera, and it's like crashing on some version of some device because there's like a million types of Android, right? So then, like before you can even blink, they've got like all these 1-star reviews in the App Store because people they're kind of dicks and they're like, oh, this thing crashed. I'm gonna give them 1 star, and so and that just it's so competitive out there. If you get a few reviews like that, they can just tank your app, So they want to be able to fix it right away. And right now, there's really no alternative. They just have to wait until their fix gets approved through the store and everyone downloads the fix, which very few people do. Like I can see, if you've deleted the app because it crashed, you're not gonna download it or So with our tool, we let everyone do that very simply because you can put it behind a feature flag. And you can say I'm gonna, for iOS or Android. For Android, they actually have this concept of stage rollout. So you can, it'll alleviate that problem a little bit. But for iOS, it's really, really difficult. You wanna avoid this problem of having a bug out there and you having to wait to resubmit through the store and get approved and for the user to update to fix that. So we allow you to circumvent that whole process. You don't have to do any of that. You can roll back the one feature without rolling back all the other features that you pushed out or all the other bug fixes that you pushed out. So I think that's inevitable. When I imagine how people are going to develop for apps in 5 years, I don't think it's going to be that. We're going to look back at modern today and be I can't believe that we had to submit every single thing through this approval process or whatever. And I can't believe that the user experience was so poor for so long. So we're going to be a driver of that change, making it easier for everyone to ensure that their users have a good time with their apps.
So let's talk about Webflow. I know Edward said that the idea of Webflow came to the other two co-founders maybe 10 years ago. Was that true?
Yeah, I think it was true. It could have been, I think it could have been 15 years ago, whenever the internet came about.
So why did you guys start the startups now?
Actually, can I answer the first question? That's a very good question. But I think the first question that you asked was, is it a good time for people to learn how to code?
Yes.
I think yes, but I think a lot of people don't have the time that's needed to truly invest themselves into really becoming a proficient programmer. So I mean, it's just inevitable for things like Webflow, for things like WordPress, for things like Node.js, for all these technologies to continue to evolve to help developers. But at a certain point, there's going to be an evolution of the tool that comes about that bridges both, that eliminates the need for you to know how to close your HTML tags, how to end your code statements with semicolons. If you think about things that computer scientists used to have to rack their brains over, like writing assembly code or writing programs on punch cards. People don't do these things anymore. And I predict that in 10 years, no one's going to be writing raw HTML. Yes, there's going to be a need to at a certain point, but I mean, it's just so obvious that there has to be some product or some way to give more power to the end user to make them more productive. So I think for developers entering this new world of information technology, I think it's really important for them to have a knowledge of all the tools that are out there, but also understand that there's also a lot of amazing frameworks and tools that you can utilize today to completely speed up your process. And for the people that don't know how to code, there's so many other options for you today too. So that's my answer to your second question. Like technology evolves, there's constantly innovation in this space, and that it's only a matter of time for these tools to essentially make web developers obsolete.
So I'm curious about, do you guys have questions for each other? At least I never usually collaborate with Nancy.
We do know each other. I mean, we all know each other.
Yeah.
So.
So do you have questions? Please raise up your hand. Please.
I actually do have two questions. One is very general and one is kind of technical. First one is, as we know that the group of developers as a group of customers, they can be very unique customers. By unique, I mean hard. Because as developers, we are very picky, very stubborn, and sometimes very OCD. For example, we don't hear editors' words in other areas. So I even heard somebody saying that never make products for developers because they're just, oh, this is too hard to use, and I use my old ones, and if my old ones are not good enough, I'm just gonna screw it and write my own. So why do you choose developers as your targeting market, and do you find that developers are extremely hard to make them satisfied with your product? And the second question is, I saw a lot of libraries and SDKs, and right now I am developing the new SDK for my company. So maybe you can describe like general principles and the special place that you pay a lot of attention to make a good library or SDK. Thank you very much.
I guess I could quickly answer the second question. So I wrote an SDK that's now installed in over 200 million phones from the last campaign. And then when you think about your code being in like almost 250 million devices, it's really hard to sleep at night. So a few things. You can't ever rely on third-party services in your SDK. You can't embed Apptimize into your SDK because that'll always conflict with the person that's using your SDK. So I would suggest building tools like Apptimize will dumb down versions for yourself, for your own sanity. Another one that I would highly recommend is Crashlytics. So looking at open source error capturing code so that you can integrate it, the actual raw source code into your SDK so that you can have the same benefit as Crashlytics.
First question.
Oh, yeah. I think our users are like really smart. They're like, by the time you're at the point where you're like, oh, I want to A/B test my app, you're like a genius relative to like the average person that's just like out there. So they're really smart. I think the thing with developers is they're always like, I'm gonna build this in a day, like this thing that you spent like a year on. And so like then it can be hard. But you want to give them something that's like simple yet configurable, because everyone, like developers, they want to like make it, like do a specific thing often, and like you have to make it so that they can adapt it to other things. So our tool is like, you can just A/B test anything you want. You can A/B test anything you can program. You can A/B test any visual thing without going to the store. You know, just so many things, because unless it like does all these things that they would be able to configure if they were imagining like what they would have built, they're like, this is not, why would I like